Connect, and Solar is actually would like to apologize for such inconvenience because this show was supposed to be there on Saturday, but it was shifted to Tuesday. Meanwhile, we still push on no matter the changes. We just implore you to keep actually onto the show. We learn and a lot of things that we're going to do into this very beautiful show. It's been a very long time actually since we last met into this beautiful show, and just allow me to take this juncture to welcome you back from the big days. That's the Christmas day and the first of this beautiful year. Thanks for having ushered into this beautiful year. And for the ones that didn't make it, actually that previous year was coming to the end of it. We lost one of our staff. That was none other than Bagomez. And this very week in this year of 2024, we have also lost one of our doctors in a very, very, very brutal murdering. Meanwhile, before we proceed the show, I will just implore you, allow me first take you into a short a break or a cool silence. We see how we mourn out our people, and away from there we shall proceed the show. Just a brief break. And welcome back from there. May their souls rest in eternal peace. And actually, we believe that God gives and God takes away. The show is called Youth Connect, and my name is Urban Brown. As I said, I'm not alone, and of course, I've moved along with my guests. They're already in the house, and we're going to be looking about actually a very beautiful topic. All our employees, just stay tuned on Elkem TV and don't move away. Maybe before I get there, just allow me give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we usher into the real guest of the show. Mr. Kangao, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe just briefly, I implore you to have a word for the viewers that are watching us on Elkem TV.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, for inviting me to the show.
Yes.
As he has already told you, I'm called Kangao Yeseri, and I'm a resident of Masindi. I'm so happy to come and be part of this show on talking about deliberating about the leading causes of illiteracy in our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kangao. He's actually a teacher, and he's already with us onto the set, and we're going to be discussing a couple of things with him. Meanwhile, may I have my colleague also to have a word for the viewers that are watching us on Elkem TV?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I'm called Lubomboka Salim. I'm a resident of Masindi, and I'm just glad that I'm here for this junction at this time. So I'm very happy, Mr. Moderator, for you to call me here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salim, and thanks for coming through. Thanks for being on Elkem TV. And it's actually a very beautiful juncture, and the show is actually called the Youth Connect. This is how we do it. Maybe before we proceed, I want to remind you that this show is proudly sponsored by Beckham Enterprise, Urban Chef Saloon. We have Kabalega Resort. We have our colleagues of St. Lawrence and Medina. Those are people that finance this show to endeavor that it reaches out to you. Maybe before we proceed, just allow me to take you into a short break. And when we come out from there, I'll be introducing to you the topic. Just tune on and don't move away.
Welcome to Urban Massage Parlor and Spa. Dear now
is the practice of kneading or manipulating a person's muscles and other soft tissue in order to improve their well-being. It is a form of manual therapy that includes holding, moving, and applying pressure to the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and fascia. And at Urban Massage Parlor we do this at an affordable price.
It's a very good afternoon once again, our viewers of Welcome TV. We'll be back from that short commercial break. I'm by the names of Urban Brown in our show entitled The Youth Connect. And this show actually, as I've told you, that it used to happen on Saturday and it was shifted to this beautiful Tuesday. And all I employ is just being on two other sets. Thanks for loving Welcome TV. Thanks for loving our shows. All I employ you to do is being part of us. Just get onto your YouTube app, type Welcome TV, subscribe and put on the bell to actually get all our programs all over the place and all over chilling from. Meanwhile, our today's topic, basically, we want to look at why are there high levels of illiteracy into our country, Uganda. So these are people that you're seeing on to say it. We are going to be discussing a couple of things basing on the levels of illiteracy that has actually gone so high into our country, Uganda. Previously, onto the information that I've got onto the research, I came to know that in East Africa, Uganda is actually at around 71% of school dropouts, and actually it is a very high rate. Meanwhile, as a country, we actually on a bad state. So I said, no, let me actually bring these officials onto the show to actually have see what is actually the causes that are leading to these high levels of illiteracy in our country. Much as government, we're trying to look at much as the government of Uganda has tried to put primary living, it's called Uganda primary education, that's UPE, and Uganda secondary education. Still, things are not as good as we expected them to be. Meanwhile, today we want to look at those core things that have actually led to the high levels of illiteracy. Mr. Kangao, once again, thanks for coming through and being on set of Welcome TV on this particular occasion, or actually this particular show, as we're going to look at the levels of illiteracy into our country, Uganda. So, Mr. Kangao, I want briefly to start with you. What do you think that, when we look at illiteracy in Uganda, there are positive things and negative things. They are two-sided. There is positivity into that very instant and a negativity. So I want us first to look onto the negative sides. How is it affecting our country, Uganda? And basically, what are the causes? Before we reach into how it's affecting our country, I want us to look at the causes. What has actually caused high levels of illiteracy into our country, Uganda?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. And to start with, I think one of the biggest causes, especially deep in the villages, is lack of exposure or lack of a good example on these villages. Mr. Moderator, you travel and you find a family setting where the father was perhaps a traditional farmer using hand hoes, and even the mother grew up in their homes doing that, and then they produce children, they grew up seeing that, and therefore they see no need of education. In fact, when sometimes you visit such families and you try to discuss with them the possibility of sending their kids to receive quality education, they will say, no, there is no problem, there is even no need for it. Because when they grow up, they will make bricks for themselves. Bricks, as in this was for constructing houses. So sometimes lack of a good example or exposure becomes a big problem. They think that's all they have seen. That's all there is in life. Or sometimes you find parents from such families, they are drunkards. So even the kid grows up knowing that, okay, I have to grow up, get married, produce kids, and also start boozing. So you find the same line, all of them, they keep moving in the same example. Now that becomes very disastrous, and it's actually, it differs slightly from the kids that have grown up in cities. Now because for them, they have good exposure. You find that at least they are seeing fancy cars passing on the streets. They are seeing smartphones, they are seeing computers. There is that natural love that comes from wanting to keep up with the technology and the surroundings around you. So because for them they have good exposure, you find even the parents, they are trying all they can to send their kids to school so that they can have a good future. So that is just one reason or one cause why there is a lot of illiteracy in Uganda, lack of exposure. The second one also, which is quite unfortunate, is orphanage. Some kids simply are unlucky in life. They find themselves in a situation where they have lost parents and nobody is available to give them a hand, to help them afford school fees, to help them afford the basics of education. So you find they grow up, and sometimes, actually, some of them, they even end up as street kids. So much as it's not their making, but it's just a pitiable situation. They just end up just like that, growing up without having exposure to education. The other reason, or the other cause of illiteracy in this country is about disabilities.
Disability, yes.
Some kids are simply born with natural calamities and natural disabilities that simply make it almost impossible for them to go to school. Like, for example, there are some disabilities, like, for example, deep in the villages, kids are born when they are blind. And even when the parents, they also know nothing, that there are perhaps schools for blind that exist out there.
Yes.
So you find such a natural disability can prevent a kid from actually getting access to quality education. Now, there are also other disabilities, like, for example, the deaf people. Me, myself, I'm a teacher for sign language for people with disability, these ones that don't hear, and then the dumb, the deaf and the dumb. But it is a handful of deaf people, actually, that make it to the education system. Even those few that try their best and go to school, I'm telling you, the majority don't go beyond primary 7. Not because it's their making, but it is because the environment around, the system.
Yes, they feel segregated or discriminated in the societies.
Absolutely. And like, for example, Mr. Moderator, like, for example, when you count the number of schools for the deaf people particularly, leave alone these ones for inclusion, but for the deaf people only. Like here in Masindi, we don't have any such schools. We only have perhaps 2, Kamurasi and Bujenji, but those are inclusion schools. They are not deaf schools. So it becomes a big challenge.
Mr. Kangao, I'd like you to try and elaborate inclusion schools. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, when we say a deaf school, we mean all the children are deaf.
Okay.
And even the teachers that are coming to teach them, they are coming to use sign language to teach everything.
Yes.
Now in Kamurasi, you find a talking teacher, then there is an interpreter in the corner.
Yes.
He has perhaps maybe 5 deaf kids in a corner and he's trying to interpret.
Okay.
That is not a deaf school. So this is the biggest challenge we are having here. And not so many parents can even afford deaf schools. Actually here, the nearest one we have is in Kampala, Ntinda. So how many parents can afford?
It's also expensive to travel from such a place to Kampala.
Absolutely.
Very high, yeah.
So disabilities, natural disabilities are a big problem to such kids and to such families. But also, there is also the stigma that goes along with such disabilities.
It is very true.
Yeah, so you find even perhaps in a situation where like we are sending our kids to schools which are inclusive, like say Kamurasi. But you know, when a kid reaches there and he sees the majority of the kids, they are able to run around, they are able to read, they are able to talk.
Yes.
For them, they are not lame, they are not in a wheelchair.
Feel stigmatized.
They feel stigma.
It is true.
And unfortunately, it leads to so many kids jumping out of school prematurely. Now, the other problem or the other leading cause of illiteracy in Uganda is also, in Uganda we could call it a cheyo. long distance parenthood.
Parental, yes.
You find, like, for example, if I'm the father, I travel, say I start working, say, in Kuwait, where there is some good cash, and then I just keep entrusting, I keep sending the money. But I've left my family here, my kids.
In wrong hands.
Yes. Now, when you're sending the money, even these people that are receiving the money on behalf of the kids, they are also hungry.
Trusted in the money, yes.
Yeah, they also need the money. So there is no guarantee.
You find it at the same time affecting the pupils.
Absolutely. You find the kids just grow wild. They are not, no one is really taking it serious to make sure they are going to school to receive the quality education they need. So sometimes long distance parenting also is a big problem. By the time the father comes back to check on the progress of the education of the kids, these are only drug addicts on the village.
It's very true. And actually, Mr. Kangao, thanks for that beautiful contribution for the viewers of Welcome TV. And actually, whoever is tuned, I appreciate you. Thanks for being onto the set of Welcome TV and loving our show. The show is called Youth Connect. So, Mr. Sally, thanks for coming through and being live on Welcome TV. Basically, we're looking at the levels of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. So, what is your vision or what is your take onto this very particular topic?
Oh, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Once again, I'm called Lugomboka Salim. First of all, literacy. So, the term literacy, in simple terms, it's something which means that you cannot manage how to read and write.
Basically, that is illiteracy. Somebody, if you can't read and
in
write.
simple terms, you cannot manage how to read and write. So it means that when they give you a document, a written document in English, you cannot understand the information. So in Uganda, there are causes of that. And according to me, I have some of them. So I can talk about child violence.
Child violence, yes.
Child violence, how does it cause illiteracy in Uganda? I'll just assume students mostly when they are treated at school. First of all, I'll take an example of being at school by teachers, giving them heavy punishment for just a small mistake they have done.
Yes.
You tell a child that I'm going to cane you 100 strokes.
Yes.
Take an example. That child whom you have told you are going to cane 100 strokes, just maybe he has done a number wrong. Me, as I was studying, it happened to a school where I was. I will not mention it. Because the teacher could say, I'm going to cane you 100. And he takes it.
Should we take it that some teachers come at school when they are biased of things?
So they are, and there are some boys who used to say, "For me, you can't cane me. At least I rather drop out."
Basically, that was
instead of you caning me, I will not go. I will not come back to school.
I rather go home.
I would rather go home and stay there. I rather go on the street. And another child violence. Still at school by fellow students. There are some students at school there who behave that as if they are the owner of the school.
So they suppress the others.
Now, take an example. You are a newcomer. You come to school, you know nothing. They treat you like as if you are someone from where
a village school. Somebody from the
not
village,
even from the village. By the way, even though it is a village school, there are students who behave like that everywhere.
It is their culture.
So when you reach there, they treat you as if you are not a Ugandan. In fact, you are not born by a woman.
You end up losing morale.
Also you lose morale. You say, every day I'm going to school. The so and so, they are treating me like this. Why should I go to school? And another thing at home. By the way, take an example. When your parent overcanes at home, Every day, small mistake takes you down. You end up running away from home. And when you run away, that one is an obvious case. You are going on the street. And what's on the street? You'll end up being a thief. So,
robbing people. It's true.
and another thing I will talk about, we'll talk about unemployment.
Unemployment, it's true.
Unemployment in Uganda, it is high.
Unemployment to the school-going students, or maybe
fact,
to the parents that may not be able to afford the school fees.
Unemployment, it goes to the parents.
Okay.
So, how does it cause illiteracy? Just get to know that when you're talking about the causes of unemployment, there are some points which talks about it is called rural-urban migration causes unemployment. But that one basically it is in towns. It causes unemployment in town in such a way that very many people will come to town and the jobs remember less. So, I'm a parent. I moved from the village where I left there my children. I came to town to hustle to look for a job, such that I pay for my young ones at home. Reaching to town, I find there jobs are nowhere to be seen. Every day they call me, my young ones want money.
And there is no possibility for it. Yes.
So what comes into these young ones of mine?
The father can't afford.
They can't afford. What should we do?
By the way, Mr. Salim, there is a point.
First of all, they end up doing child labor.
That is true.
Those ones who may think wisely. Now, there are these ones who just go on streets. If our father can't take care of us, what about what should we do?
From the streets.
Why can't I survive from the street? So let me go on the street. I will make life from there.
So, Mr. Sally, there is actually a point that you've actually brought into my mind. You're trying to show us the levels of poverty among these parents has also caused high levels of illiteracy in that they can't afford the school fees. This poverty that has actually accumulated. You find that people have no money totally and they fail to pay school fees, and it actually raises the levels of illiteracy. Yeah. So, Mr. Kangao, back to you. Our viewers of Welcome TV, once again, I want to appreciate you for being great viewers. Thanks for being there. And we appreciate you actually drop your comment, and we shall read it as we're winding up this particular show. Wherever it's watching, thanks for loving Welcome TV. And we love you back. We're still proceeding with the show. Mr. Kangao,
Yes,
basically, we have looked at the positive, actually the negative side of illiteracy. I want us to look at a few positive sides, or the positive things that are there if somebody is not educated, because particularly we've seen people that have not gone to school but they are living a very good life compared to the people that have studied. Do you understand? So I want you to give us some light about the positive things. If somebody has not gone to school, can he still survive? Can he still be well?
Well, it is true that wherever there is an advantage, there is also a disadvantage,
very true.
and vice versa. Now, in this particular case, for the people who are illiterate, they have a big advantage over those that have gone to school. Why? Because just as Mr. Moderator, you know, the education system and setup that we have here in our country, Uganda, is actually following the colonial style of grooming employees and not job creators, entrepreneurs. Now, I have actually noticed that most illiterates, they are very good entrepreneurs. These are the people in the villages that are actually coming up with the nice projects. Like, for example, brick making. It is so hard to find a degree master holder going in for that such business. Now, you can imagine if all of us were PhD holders who would be making for us the bricks? And also when you look at, for example, the entire world, usually people that have not gone to school so much to high levels, like for example the Bill Gates, they are actually the ones holding the economy of this world. They are so innovative because they know looking for a job is not a choice.
Mr. Kangao, on that particular topic actually that you've raised, aren't you saying that much as these people have the money, they have the capability, you know, there is being blessed. Now let's take it that these people are blessed and they have the money. Don't you think that these people face challenges in terms of calculating, balancing books, that kind of things?
Yes, they do, but in a setting where you have
Money.
many
Yes.
employee-oriented mentality of people, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Just set up the business and the employees will come like water. Just advertise for one position and you'll
Yes.
see how many applications
Yes,
you
for
will
the
get.
educated ones.
Yeah, for the educated. And then the other thing, also advantage sometimes that comes with illiteracy is that is politically motivated. These guys are easy to rule. They're so easy to rule.
When you're not educated, what you're trying to mean that these people that have not gone to school,
Yes.
or the people that have not accessed education,
Yes.
They're very easy in case a political man that comes about can simply rule out to them.
Absolutely.
And they do whatever he feels like.
Absolutely. You just have to come up with smart explanations and figures they never understand, and like give them percentages that perhaps we are doing well according to the economy. We are perhaps 75% doing better.
You confuse.
Which illiterate is going to understand that?
Yes.
You can die in power, I'm telling you. Yeah. So politically, it's also good to deal with illiterates because they never understand these things. On the other hand,
Yes.
if you are dealing with the elites,
Yes.
what are you going to deceive them? They know how to go to the internet, they can make research, they can compare data, they know the bad things that are happening in your regime.
Yes.
So illiterate sometimes politically.
They simply look into your manifesto.
Absolutely. So with those two points, I feel illiterates also are a good advantage to the community.
Yes.
But also the other thing is they also, the third advantage of having illiterates also amongst us is it is so easy. They deal with the hardest work in the community. Like for example, look at the friends in town, almost in every town you go to, those that are collecting garbage on the streets. Those that are sitting on public toilets to collect that small coin every person is coming. You think you can employ a person of PhD to sit on the toilet?
I never.
No.
It can't happen.
But these people, they just do it willingly and they are happy to do it. So they handle the most sensitive, low-ranked jobs in every city you go to.
Okay. So briefly, that is actually some of the advantages, I call them the advantages of not going to school or of illiteracy. So Mr. Sally, may you actually have a word on two other positive sides of illiteracy? Maybe before we get there, Mr. Sally, just allow me, we move into a short break, and when we come back, we shall begin from there. once again from that commercial break, and I'm by the names of Urban Brown, and the show is actually called Youth Connect, and it's a very beautiful juncture that we're actually trying to explore and look into the matter of the literacy that has come along, that has become actually a name to our country, Uganda. On to my extreme right, I have my panelist. And onto the particular show, onto my extreme right, I have my guest, and it's called Yeseri Kangao. And onto the next right is my also guest, and that's Sally. We're trying to actually navigate and looking to the illiteracy that has actually become a big norm into our country, Uganda. Meanwhile, before we got into our break, we were actually trying to look at the positive sides of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. So, Mr. Sally, briefly, I want you to highlight the viewers of Welcome TV onto the positive side, because we have gotten two sides, the negative things and the positive things onto this particular show. So I want you to actually give us your side of the positive side of illiteracy. How is illiteracy good for our country, Uganda?
Once again, thank you, Mr. Moderator. As we all know that everything, it has a disadvantage and an advantage. But there are some cases where you see that to a smaller extent, there are advantages, and to a bigger extent, it is a disadvantage. So even though in Uganda there are high levels of illiteracy, which is not good, but there are some advantages of it. First of all, I will first supplement on Mr. Kangao, what he has said. I'm going to supplement on it. He talked about something which was connecting to
is actually based on to actually empowering the youth. We look at entertaining the youth and informing you and educating at the same time. Meanwhile, the show today, we actually looking at the levels of illiteracy that is actually went above the level that it was supposed to be. Meanwhile, I implore you that wherever is live, just drop on your comment onto the YouTube site, and I'll be reading it for you as we ush into the last minutes of the show. Basically, before we got into this, we had our colleague actually was trying to highlight more big onto the positive sides of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. So, Mr. Sadi, just take us briefly into the few importances of illiteracy in our country, Uganda.
Okay. My friend talked about education system, and it's what I mostly wanted to supplement on. When you look at the education system of Uganda, let me say for something like 4 years back, let us begin from 2019 backward. The education system of Uganda, it is more of being theoretical
than
practical. You take a look at an example like even practical subjects. They first give you theory. That's what am I meaning? A student who is doing biology is first given theory before he goes for practical. First have the theoretical part of it, then you go for practical. And in most cases, they talk in theory. It takes much time than practicals.
So what you're trying to mean, they are given a little time of practicals. So when these people come back to communities, it drives us back to the other topic of unemployment. Is it not?
So these guys, they are given much time of theory. That's why you find them in a community, they know how to speak. Because of being given theory,
Practically doing
but
something.
practically
Nothing.
they don't know. Now it comes to for now it is an added advantage to the illiteracy guys who never went to school. For them, they stay in the village. They work with their hands. So they gun lay bricks. They do the other job. They do the other job. Most of them, they end up going to garages.
Minus even wasting time of going to school.
Of going to school. And now I have examples of them. They never went to school. For them, they just went to garage. P3, they went to garage.
And they're successful people.
They are successful. They are successful people. But you find someone who went to school because of the other thing, the education, the background of the education. It is more of being theoretical.
Somebody is having books.
Books, very, very like you read books, but there is nothing at all. But there is nothing
These
which
are
is
the
going to
people
gain
that
you.
come on street here, they booze with some big English. Okay, yes. So basically, viewers of Welcome TV, I've told you the show is called Youth Connect, and basically it was transferred from Saturday, and it's to today on Tuesday that it was brought to, and today on two other set we're actually trying to look at levels of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. As I told you at the beginning of this particular show, that if you look at the percentage today in East Africa, actually Uganda is having the highest percentage of around 71% of school dropouts, and which is actually bad for our country. You know, before maybe Mr. Kangao, we have actually talked on a lot of things actually. We have talked about the positive sides and the negative sides of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. So I want us to look at how has this illiteracy actually affected the economy of our country, Uganda.
Well, one of the biggest challenges is that it reduces greatly the tax base of the country, Uganda. Why? Because the biggest number of the illiterates don't have formal work. And most of them are actually surviving on subsistence way of life. In other words, they are working for today's food, nothing to keep for tomorrow. And now most of those ones, they completely don't contribute anything to the tax base of the country. Compared to the other counterparts, for example, who are in formal employment. Like for example, if someone is employed as a professional doctor, at least the government is always chopping part of the taxes, and it is going to the national treasury. But how about this one who is carrying, for example, luggages in a window market? He's getting, for example, 5,000.
Basically, there is no way he's promoting the country's economy.
Absolutely. And just as Mr. Moderator, you might be aware that there is no country that doesn't depend on taxes for development.
It is very true.
I am yet to find a country of that nature.
It is true.
So even those countries that we admire, the so-called developed countries, this is what, first of all, they had to address, to make sure every citizen is properly employed. And if they find you unemployed, the government takes it up. It owns the situation. That's why in some countries, they even resort to coming up with perhaps laws like idle and disorderly.
Disorderly, yes.
Why do you wake up early in the morning and you go in the city center
We
to
used
sit?
to have that law in Uganda. What happened?
Yeah, it was there, but the president discontinued it.
Oh, okay.
In the guise of freedom,
Oh, okay.
that you are in your own country, why should you be harassed?
Oh, okay.
But the other countries,
It is
they look at it from the angle of the economic angle. Yeah, because if I was to wake up and then I just sit in the city center doing no work, I am not going to support the country. And yet, Mr. Moderator, the worst part of the story is people who are contributing nothing to the tax base to the development of the country economically, usually they are the first ones to complain that the government is not helping them.
It is very true.
But the government never gets magic money. It goes on chopping from you, me, and the other one.
And then gives it back to you.
And then it comes back, it makes roads, it makes hospitals, it makes schools, and then life continues.
So we say it's in a triangular form.
Absolutely.
From you, it comes back to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that is one very big disadvantage of really having people who are illiterate, is that they contribute very less when it comes to taxes. And that greatly keeps the country in the third world status. Now, the other also disadvantage of having illiterates is they are so easy to manipulate, Mr. Moderator. I will give you an example. If anyone wanted to become a rebel in a country,
Yes. First look for the illiterates.
the illiterates,
These are the people you get on streets.
yeah,
Immediately
they are playing cards, they are smoking,
idle.
they are idle, they are fed up with life. So if such a person, you just approach to him and say, you know what, I'm giving you this amount of money, it's like a miracle. He's like, what? Really? Yes, you just have to show him what to do. And then the guy will do what you want. And this manipulation, not only does it stop at that, but also when it comes to other things, like, for example, I'll give you an example. Say, for example, the banking sector. The banking sector is one of those sectors that are so good, that helps the country to grow up. But did you know it also requires a smart brain for someone to manage the banking sector properly? Because, like, for example, how a bank works, it's basically playing on your head. They say, okay, Mr. Moderator, you're working with a certain company, says, okay, you know, when you grow old, you will have no money to take care of your kids. And you'll have no money when you're sick. Where will you go? You say, oh, yes. So can you please start depositing part of your money with us? We'll be keeping it. But in reality, they're not keeping it. They're just outsmarting you. They use it to do business. And then from that business, they give out to other rich guys who know how to use the money. Now, for me, who is illiterate, your job is to give them. So now the profits that come out, the rich man...
Fund back to
The rich man shares the profit and then the bank shares. And who is the loser?
It's you.
It's me who is illiterate. Because an illiterate doesn't know.
So what you're trying to mean that these educated and rich people have much benefited from the illiterates?
Very much.
Okay.
The elites, they need the illiterates to survive.
So much.
Very, very, very much. Otherwise, that's why those elites, for them, they have gone to school. They know how to use money. They know that money has to be invested, not to be kept somewhere. Because money loses value with the time. 1 million shillings that I used to have in 2000, and the same million shilling, if they gave it to you of today, does it to buy the same things?
Not really.
No, not really. So money loses over time. That's why, me personally, I don't keep money. I invest money. Because if, for example, I was to get right now 1 million shillings, no one will tell me, come and put it here in a bank. We shall give it to you 30 years later. No. To me, that's the wrong way. I rather get that million, jump on a motorcycle, go to a very deep village somewhere, buy land, come back to town, keep quiet. 30 years later, that million will no longer be 1 million. And yet if you take it to be kept, it will still remain 1 million, even less in value. So the illiterate are easy to manipulate. You can steal their things from them. Even if you stole and he goes to the laws of courts, it is only the elites that win cases, for your information.
True.
Yeah, even if an illiterate person, sincerely, he's the genuine one. But the questions and the games they play in courts of law.
Basically, if you're to look at the laws of Uganda, they have that thing they say that there is nobody that's above the what? The law. Meaning
Ignorance.
now, you're trying to tell me that the elites are now above the law.
No. They're not above the law, but they know how to juggle the law to achieve what they want.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
It's clear.
because for the illiterate, they are not aware of anything. Actually, when an ignorant person goes to law, the first thing he sees is this judge who is dressed. He has perhaps a wig. He's in a tie. He's dressed everything. All the rooms are so wow.
Scary.
That alone throws an illiterate person off balance. His reasoning is already off. Now, to a lawyer, that is his daily bread. So illiteracy
Yes.
causes manipulation. They are manipulated so much. They are exploited so much because they completely have very small knowledge on so many things. Banking sectors, I've said, courts of law, everywhere. Even the rebels that want, the politicians, if one is contesting, it is easier to manipulate the illiterates than the elites. The elites will ask you questions. And then the illiterates, they will just clap their hands. You know?
It is very true. And actually, viewers of Welcome TV, once again, thanks for being onto the show. Actually, the show is called the Youth Connect Show with me, Urban Brown, and the two guests in the house. We are trying to look and navigating onto the illiteracy that has actually become too much in our country, Uganda. Briefly, Kangao has been actually taking us through the way this illiteracy has actually affected the economy of our country, Uganda. Maybe let me try to move to my colleague Sally just briefly to have a take onto how illiteracy has actually affected the economy of our country, Uganda.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Moderator. I will talk about that. How has illiteracy affected? How it has, in which way, positive or negative way?
Always.
Anyway. Okay. Illiteracy has affected the country, let me say the economy of Uganda. And these guys who are illiterate, they are easy to be ruled.
Like yesterday
In
said.
terms of politics, it does not need a lot of words to control them. First of all, they will be having no questions for you.
Just bring some
Yeah.
jargons to confuse their brains.
Just bring tricks. You play for you just play on their minds, and they will accept everything. So another thing.
So you guys, you're showing me that these illiterates, when they see somebody educated in the community, is like a king.
Remember,
Yes.
when we used to go to when I was young, they used to tell us that when you go to school and you're from the village and you come back, everyone sees you as the owner of that village. Why?
You look different.
You look different. Okay? So these villagers, they will just see you as that.
They praise you.
Me,
Okay.
I'm a Musoga. There are times, but I grew up from this way. But I went, I started from Busoga.
Back home.
So when we used to get holidays, and I go back to the village where my mom stays, they used to see me,
Like, you know,
this man,
big guy.
taking an example that I was still young. I had friends who were married. So they used to get problems with their wives.
They come.
They come to me.
So it's like
Some parents used to get problems with their children. They come to me. Why? To a smaller extent, I just went to school just for
smaller extent.
to a smaller extent, but they used to come to me because they knew that I'm what?
Educated.
I can solve. So that is the way how. That's why you see, in terms of politics, when you go to such type of people in villages, for them they don't mean
There
the
is
person.
how they prioritize an educated person in the community.
They say that this is our man. He studied. We must. This is the one.
Okay.
but they don't see the knowledge.
So you're trying to tell me that these people are always so inspired when they look about you coming from their community and you're educated.
And you're educated.
They take you to be everything.
My friend, I'm telling you.
It is very true.
For me, it happened to me.
Yes.
I was not yet married. You bring for me,
But
I
you'd-
judge
but
someone who is married.
Yes.
That you tell
But
me,
you'd
what,
solve
what
their
should I do
problems.
to this wife of mine?
Yes.
And what could you expect me to say?
It is actually so interesting of viewers of Welcome TV. This is the show actually entitled The Youth Connect, and it's actually based on educating, entertaining, and informing all our viewers that are watching. Meanwhile, whoever is watching, I appreciate you. Thanks for keeping on. Thanks for loving Welcome TV. Thanks for loving the show. And today we are looking at levels of illiteracy. And let's just move into a short break. And when we return, we shall begin from there.
Welcome to Urban Massage Parlor and Spa. Dear customers, we are now open.
Massage is the practice of kneading or manipulating a person's muscles and other soft tissue in order to improve their well-being or health. It is a form of manual therapy that includes holding, moving, and applying pressure to the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and fascia. And at Urban Massage Parlor, we do this at an affordable price.
Once again, our viewers of Welcome TV, I appreciate you for having actually been great viewers. We're still proceeding with the show, and we'll be back from we actually ushering to the last episode of this particular show. And as I told you that this show is called The Youth Connect, and it's supposed to be there. It previously used to be there on Saturday, and it was shifted to Tuesday. And this is the very time from 2 to 3 that we actually give you this particular show, and we talk about a couple of things. Meanwhile, as I told you today on set, I have Kangao Yesen on my extreme right, and the next right is Sali. And today we actually looking on the levels of illiteracy. I implore you that is tuned and watching live to just drop a comment as we're winding up this particular show. We shall read it for the viewers. Meanwhile, Kangao, it's like you have a word for the viewers, because
Yeah.
we are not time is not our best ally.
Yeah, I just wanted to have this one point which is very important, is that you see if the difference between illiteracy and someone who has gone to school is that it also improves the standard of living at home. How? Like, for example, when you find a person who is educated gets married to an illiterate woman, this woman is again, life at home will not be balanced. Okay, they have that natural submission which does not ask why.
Okay.
But if you find
do
a
you
couple,
believe that this lady or the wife, the married wife, can be transformed based on the knowledge of the husband?
yeah, but it rarely happens. Usually, if that imbalance is there, the one who is more knowledgeable will always again take advantage of the other. I'll give you an example. Do you still remember in the African traditional society how the men used to outsmart their women?
Oh.
That they are not allowed to eat the chicken.
They had powers.
The eggs, they are not allowed to eat them. When they eat eggs, when the women eat eggs, something
There was
very bad will happen.
extreme superiority among
Yeah,
men.
yeah. So you can see how they would outsmart them. But of lately, now which woman can you outsmart like that? They have gone to school. They know eggs. They know the chicken. They know everything. The nutrients that are there, they are equally good for each one.
Yes.
And then also, still in the family setting, how it improves the way of life is, like for example, do you still remember couples that have not gone to school, they are so poor at record keeping.
It is true.
You produce a kid and ask the father, how old is this kid? 3 years later, the guy will struggle. He doesn't remember which month, he doesn't.
It is true.
Actually, even up to today, there are even some people that were born back then. Like even as an example, in the mustard seed, when you read about His Excellency, the president of this country, he also struggles with his debt. And in the mustard seed, he says, it is because his parents, they completely were not very good at record keeping. All he still remembers were the circumstances they used to tell him surrounding his birth. That there was a massive countrywide vaccination of cat against rinderpest.
Which would confuse.
And then the king of Ankole had died, and then the second one had not taken over. So later when he grows up, then we visit history, then they can assume it must have been around here.
Okay, the estimate.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it, Kangao. Just in a minute, I want you to actually have a highlight to the viewers. How can we actually improve on literacy? Just in a minute, have a word.
Number one, we must take examples of people that have gone to school.
This one.
Look around, look at countries that have gone so high into education. You can see how their education and knowledge is ruling us who still have limited education. Kids are able to manipulate computers. They are able to make research. They are coming up with the solutions for complicated diseases. We recently had COVID-19. Look at how the scientists quickly use their brain to come up with a solution. If we don't send our kids to school by looking at the good examples we have in society, we shall lag behind. And yet, if we send them to school, we educate them properly, we shall succeed and compete favorably like other countries.
That's very true, and that has been Kangao. Actually, Sally, as we actually have given you just 1 minute, I want you to talk about how to improve on illiteracy in our country, Uganda. Just one point like this, and we look on the way forward.
Actually, as first of all, I will talk about the government of Uganda. First of all, did this. They introduced UPE and USE schools. But in these schools of UPE and USE, there are some schools which act like they are USE, but they are not. When you bring your child to that school, you may think that it is a USE school, but it is not inside. How do you know that it is not? The tuition they tell you.
So basically, government should improve.
So my point is on the government. The government, what they should do, they should first of all improve the salary of the teachers.
That's true.
Because what makes these USE school to become to pretend that they are used and yet they are not? It is the salary.
These people are surviving.
They are surviving hard. So the government will just see that, and they should also in those schools put their equipments, apparatus, what to use.
Okay, that's very true. Okay, our viewers of Welcome TV, and my name is Urban Brown, and the show is called Use Connect. And this particular show, we're actually cloning down this very show. And today we have actually been looking into the high levels of illiteracy that has actually engulfed our country, Uganda. Maybe before we get into, before we wind up from here, Mr. Producer, do you have any comment? It's okay if there is no comment. Mr. Kanga will just employ you to have your last word for the viewers of Welcome TV, and we sign out of here.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator Aban, and I'm so great for having invited me here over.
You're welcome.
And I'm so grateful for the entire management of this company. I'm so happy for having me over, and I pray that perhaps this might not be the last one. Even next time, I look forward. And thank you so much, all viewers, for the nice audience and for following us. And please stay tuned, because this is the best television on earth for now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kangao, for the nice words for the actually viewers of Welcome TV. Mr. Sally, I employ you to have your last words for the viewers of Welcome TV.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I would love to say that I'm too happy for having invited me here as a guest. And I would say that if it was not Elcom, could I be here today? Could someone see me? So I'm very glad for that.
Okay.
So our viewers, I would just say that bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much, viewers of Welcome TV. My name is Urban Brown, and the show is actually called the Use Connect Show. Today, onto the site, I've been with Kangao, Yeseri, and Sally, trying to navigate onto the high levels of illiteracy in our country, Uganda. We have actually talked about a couple of things. All I implore you, our viewers of Welcome TV, that a number of things have been talked about, the ones that we need to implement, and I call upon government to actually also put in a hand where a thumbs is missing. We see that we improve on that particular side. One more time, the show, as I've told you, I can't forget to remind you that this show is proudly sponsored by Beckham Enterprise, Kabalega Resort, St. Lawrence, Medina, and Urban Chef Salon. Meanwhile, this show actually was transferred from Saturday to Tuesday. All I implore you, just follow us and get up in touch with us on every Tuesday, either from the hours of 2 to the hours of 3, on different topics that will actually be coming up. Maybe before we wind up or sign out of here, I have somebody that I want to wish a happy birthday all over you. Ategeka Julian, have your best day, and a happy birthday to you. Just wishing you the best, and may you live to actually blow us out than candles. It's your day. Enjoy yourself. Thanks for having been good viewers of Welcome TV, and thanks for loving the show. It's been me, Urban Brown, and we out of here. I wish you the best of the week.